Y'all would please stand with us as we say the pledge and have an invocation. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord, we thank you for another opportunity to come together, Lord, to take care of the business of Walton County. We pray that you'll just give us wisdom and insight and help us to make the right decisions for all the citizens of the county. Pray that you'll watch over each one of us as we go home and take care of us throughout the week. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And the first item on the agenda is we need to select a chair and vice chair. Commissioners?
I'd like to nominate Teddy as chair.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Anybody else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Vice chair.
I nominate Lee Perry as vice chair.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
You were quicker on the draw than I was.
And I obviously was way too slow on the draw, so. Okay, next item, minutes. Need to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is Mac available?
Yep.
I just give him a hard time. We have any announcements, sir?
Yes, sir, we do. We have several requests to either continue or table. Would you like to take those at the beginning of the meeting?
Yeah, we probably should, one by one.
Number 4, Ocean Estates, small scale amendment. I think we had a request to table. Their agent may be here to explain some extenuating circumstances and request a continuance, if you could indulge them for just a moment.
Okay.
Good evening, I'm Gary Shipman. I was the law firm of Dunlap and Shipman. I was just recently retained by the owner and the developer of Ocean Estates. I've really just started looking at the file. I corresponded yesterday with David Pleat, who apparently represents a group of owners who are opposed to at least some of what we proposed doing. And what I've asked is that we continue to give me an opportunity, one, to get into the file and really understand everything that we're proposing, and two, to be able to meet next week with David Pleat just to discuss, what we could and couldn't agree on. While I realized there had been some prior continuances because the developer, Mr. Clark, had some health issues, I really don't see any harm, and I don't believe there's any notice problems since the people who are opposed are represented by council, and that's part of the reason I'm wanting to continue to meet with them.
Okay.
I think everybody would be better served. Let me see what we can work out, and what we can't, before we actually get up here arguing in front of y'all.
All right.
When do you want to continue it to?
I've asked for the first meeting in July. I'd like to at least continue to June.
Can we do that, Mark?
Yes, sir. You can
Okay.
continue to a date, any date certain you choose.
All right. Anybody have any questions? Is there anybody here who came for this item who has anything to say about continuance? Okay. Seeing none? I don't know. Commissioners, your pleasure.
Motion to continue to, what's the date, sir?
I think it's
June.
July 13th, I believe, is the date in July.
Was the July meeting?
The July meeting, then, yeah.
Motion to continue to the July meeting.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. Number 5, we have a request to table that item, the alley abandonment in Block 85.
Before we go forward, Mark, you probably need to swear everybody in.
No.
This is
This is-
legislative.
yeah,
We
this
won't
is
get to quasi judicial. Thanks.
Go ahead.
Request to table the alley abandonment, Block 85. That is item number 5 on the agenda.
Table.
Table.
Okay. Commissioners?
We have anybody else that needs to speak on it?
If it's a table, I don't know that there would be. They're not continuing. They're just pulling it. Anybody want to speak on this? Okay. Seeing none.
I move we table it.
Second.
We have a motion to table.
And second?
We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item number 6, the Pando small-scale amendment. We previously had a request to continue this item for 1 month to allow them to go to the BCC and request a waiver of the 12-month waiting period that is applied if you've been denied for a land use change. They have today in writing requested to table this item, and they'll wait the 12 months and come back next year.
Okay.
So, number 6, we have a request to table.
Members?
I move we table it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
And then number 8, the Miramar Inn and Suites went to the DRB on the 6th. They elected to continue that item, so we are required to continue item number 8, Miramar Inn and Suites, to the May 11th Planning Commission meeting, if it would be your pleasure.
Okay. Commissioners?
Motion to continue?
We have a motion?
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
And then on item number 10, the Casine Station PUD amendment, we've had a request to continue from the agent due to change in attorney status. The agent is here, and I'll let him explain those circumstances and the reasoning behind their request to continue.
Okay.
Oh, you have a conflict.
I have a conflict on this one. Okay. So I'm gonna
Mr.
recuse
Roberts is
myself.
announcing
You
a
don't have to
conflict, so
leave.
we'll file the appropriate paperwork.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ed Stanford with Core Consulting. The representation for the applicant for the PUD amendment just informed him yesterday that their firm and another local firm had basically combined, and they are no longer able to represent the applicant. We just found this out yesterday, and the applicant has retained new counsel, and that was just earlier today. So we don't feel like we have been given the opportunity to get the new counsel up to speed. If there are any issues, we'd like him to meet with the county staff prior to going forward with the hearing.
If they merge, they didn't keep the same counsel, they just merged firms?
They merge firms and they have a conflict with this particular project.
Okay.
Gary Shipman's is
Yeah,
one part of
Mr.
that.
Shipman?
The Sachs law firm merged into my law firm. We represented the homeowners association that is opposed to it, and the Sachs law firm represented the applicant for the development. So obviously, at this point, my law firm can represent neither. So we had to withdraw from representing everyone. And so, because we can't, as much as a lawyer would love to be able to get paid to be on both sides.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? I'm almost certain there are people that came tonight for this item.
I have a question.
Please come to the podium.
Why don't we get a motion in a second before we take?
Okay, we have a motion. Commissioners? We need a motion first.
Motion, what do they ask for table?
I think let's continue
Continue.
to the June meeting. I'm sorry, the
No,
May.
May meeting.
May meeting.
May meeting's fine.
We have a motion.
I made the motion to continue.
We have a motion and a second. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Linda Coons. I'm the president of the Casine Village Homeowners Association, one of 3 associations in this planned unit development. And we are not represented by legal representation here, so I do not understand why I can't speak and give you our assessment of this issue.
Well, if we're not hearing it, you just have to come back and do it again when we hear the item. I mean, you understand? I mean, that's,
Unless she lives outside there.
yeah, unless you aren't local and you made special arrangements to be here.
Well, it depends on how long it's delayed, because
Well, the
my
motion-
husband and I are going to be making a trip out of the country soon.
The motion was to continue it till May 11th,
All right, I'll still be here.
okay?
So we come back on May 11th.
Yeah, that's when it will be continued to.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Anybody else? There's probably a lot of people here on this item, so. Are you coming up to speak, sir? No, I'm just... You're trying to sneak out, huh?
Quietly and unnoticed.
Okay. This one, I think this is also going before the code board.
It has a violation,
Is a violation?
I'm not sure. I'll look at staff, but I think the violations have been cleared, if I'm correct. No, except for one. So yes, there is.
Okay.
One that would be heard tonight.
Okay.
So that's what this hearing was for, was to try to get into compliance?
Correct, sir.
Okay, so it wouldn't go to the code board until we made a decision? Okay. Jack Burke? Okay. Commissioners, it's your pleasure. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
That'll clear a room.
That's all of our announcements, Mr. Chair.
We have anything else left to do?
We can move into the legislative items.
Okay, I'm
We
just
still
kidding.
have 3 of those,
I know.
and a few of the QJ ones.
Let's move on.
The first item tonight is the Chapter 13 plant list ordinance. This is a request to amend the plant list in the Walton County Land Development Code, Chapter 13, that applies to US 98 Scenic Corridor. The Design Review Board has reviewed this and have made some recommendations. And it is now at the Planning Commission level as an amendment to the Land Development Code.
Okay.
Tim Brown is here, the Scenic Corridor Review Specialist, to be able to answer any questions you might have about the information in your packet.
Actually, what they're doing is just adding some,
I think we're adding some. We may be subtracting a couple also.
okay. Mr.
Or
Brown?
we just only adding these.
Yeah, Tim Brown with Planning and Development. What happened in this instance was, when we did this last year, it came through the Planning Commission, and Brad Davis got up and suggested some additional native plants that weren't in the list at that time. You guys made a motion to do that, include this list, but it didn't make it into the final ordinance that went before the commission. So when they approved the changes, they did not approve the changes that Brad suggested. So now we're coming back to include them now. So this is a new ordinance, but we're putting those native plants in there because it didn't make it into the final ordinance.
Very good. Thank you. So anybody have any questions of staff? Okay. Anybody in the audience wish to address this item? Very good. Commissioners?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item under our legislative list is the Crossings Phase 3 Large-Scale Amendment. This is a request to recommend approval by ordinance. It's a large-scale text amendment because this is an amendment to the Inlet Beach Traditional Neighborhood Plan, which is the only neighborhood plan we have that's a component of the Land Development Code. And because we have to amend the Land Development Code, that makes it a large-scale amendment. Tim Brown is the reviewer on this particular project, and just this project and the next project, if I could just give you a little bit further guidance. These are proposed to be support parking lots for existing developments. The first one would support the Crossings, which is the retail center that has 2 phases along US 98, just east of the Donut Hole. And then the next one, when we get to that, would be ancillary to the Donut Hole, and would be incorporated into that project, as this one would be incorporated into the Crossings development project. Tim is available to answer any questions you might have.
Tim?
Yes, I don't have much to add. Mac covered everything, but it is important. It's a text amendment as opposed to a map amendment. We're amending a map, but it's not a land use change. It's a text amendment to the comprehensive plan. This one is proposed to be phase 3 of the Crossings. So there'll be parking, but there'll also be additional retail space they're proposing. There is a proposed site plan in your packet there. And then the next one is additional parking overflow, if you will, for the Donut Hole across the street. But they're both going from residential. They're currently residential under the Inlet Beach Neighborhood Plan. They're going to neighborhood commercial. The underlying land use isn't changing, which is infill. It's infill now. It's going to stay infill.
Okay.
When you say are they tearing some of this stuff down?
On the next one, not this one, there's a dilapidated apartment building. They are going to tear that down. This one for the Crossings is a vacant lot. And there's an easement there. There's an existing entrance off of North Wall Street. It's a 66-foot wide easement. So this will be built, phase 3 will be built just on the north side. So there'll be access through that entrance off of Wall. But another one, the parking lot for the Donut Hole, is going to be accessed directly off of Wall. There's no entrance road or anything for it.
How much parking does this add?
I don't know the exact number. They just showed the site plan showing the parking lot, but I don't know exactly how many spaces. The applicant is here, and he may be able to answer that for you.
Okay. Anybody else, anything for staff? Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
You're up.
Good evening, Robert Carroll, McNeil Carroll Engineering, 17800 Panama City Beach Parkway. I am the agent, and if this does go forward, we'll be coming back to a development order, and you'll be seeing this as a development order application as well. So we're calling it Phase 3 of Crossings. It was initially going to be the same developer that's done Phase 1 and Phase 2. It turned out he's not doing it, but this does interconnect with Phase 1s and 2, so it's kind of a mirror image, just tying it all in. But it will be, the proposed is a new commercial development with parking that surrounds it, interconnects with the roadway that's already been installed. So that's why it's called Phase 3, even though it's a different developer. Same architectural style, it'll blend in with the rest of it.
Is that the crossings directly south of it?
Yes, sir. Phase 2 is directly on the south there. Phase 1 is actually down over here.
Okay.
But as you see, this lines up directly across from the donut hole here, be an independent project.
Okay.
But we're just requesting that text amendment so that way we can proceed on with this project.
All right, Dan?
How much parking, how many slots that is?
This particular one is, I want to say around 50 parking spaces or so. It would meet code for this project. This is a standalone Crossings Phase 1 and 2. They have overflow parking, so this is not for them.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
And that yellow, that's the proposed commercial space?
Yes, sir. Yeah, in the Inlet Beach, also in the neighborhood plan, parking has to be to the rear and to the sides. So it would, if we did it backwards, since it's a standalone, it wouldn't meet the intent. So that's why we have the design as the way we do.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We do have a couple of people who have signed up to speak.
And before we get there, Mr. Chairman, if I could just make one clarification. Number 2 and number 3 are almost identical projects, but the colored maps are in the wrong spot. So to your question as to what's that yellow strip there, that actually is on the next project. The one we should be looking at, which is in tab 3, is the one where the red hatched area actually touches the other red hatched area.
I see 3 separate buildings.
Yes. And that one would be adjacent to the existing crossings development. Or at least in our printed books, the 2 maps were
Oh, it's the
reversed.
same map that we got.
Same amount.
Yeah,
But they are adjacent to one another.
okay. Valerie Simmons.
I've got some measurements.
Over here, please. This is what, this is legislative.
I'm Valerie Simmons. I'm a 32-year resident of Inlet Beach. I've been an accountant, a certified business analyst, a real estate broker. I'm the past founder of the Inlet Beach Community Council and past president, and I've been in your seats. I've been a county planning commissioner. One thing that the Inlet Beach Community Council did was help create the Inlet Beach Neighborhood Plan. And that was after the county adopted our comprehensive plan. The property owners of Inlet Beach wanted to protect the values of their property, and so they did this neighborhood plan, which was the first. At the time, the planning department was understaffed, so the residents took it upon themselves to do this by themselves. It took many, many meetings, many, many hours. You had disputes before you all the time. It took a long time to get this neighborhood plan done. And when it was done, everyone agreed upon it. The biggest thing was some of the people didn't want commercial along the highway. I thought it only fair to the people who had property along the highway that they had commercial. Little did I know that give them an inch, take a mile years later, that they want to grow like a cancer into our residential areas where we put residents, where we plan on putting residents. As you can see by these maps, they voted on just the lots along the highway being commercial. I've got 8 pages of a neighborhood blog that's gone on since this was proposed, and one of the ladies wrote, and none of them is for extending commercial into residential. One of the ladies said, well, I thought it would take an act of God to change our neighborhood plan. And she said, I thought all the people in Inlet Beach would have to vote to change our neighborhood plan. And that's kind of the way the people who aren't familiar with the process think, that once they come to the county, once they've all voted, they show you this is what the neighborhood wants, that then it's written in stone. And I told them, you don't understand how the system works, and people can put up 2 signs proposing it in between the 2 for sale signs on the property, and if nobody goes down that street, nobody's going to see that. And only the people within 300 feet are even going to know about what's going on. And if you don't read the legals in the Defuniak Herald every week, then you don't know what's going on in your neighborhood. So I'm here representing a lot of the property owners who own property, and especially the people who own the property right next door to this property. And that's the second page and of what I've given you. And this property is a 5-acre property, and the dark part right here is the property. There is a sign on the property showing the engineer's conceptual drawing of this to have 32 residential units on this property. And the engineer has put it so the preservation area is on the south by the crossroads, so it won't be by the commercial. Now, the engineer has also put it so that there's going to be homes along what we thought would be residential, but now we see it's going to be a parking lots. And it's going to be parking lots and retail. Now, the donut hole is open from 6 in the morning till 10 at night. And I heard how many, would you like your bedroom to be across from a parking lot for a restaurant that's open from 6 in the morning till 10 at night? This is totally devaluing my client's property by putting in parking lots. And also, if you look at the light part here, this is going to be 46 homes. That's going to be $850,000 apiece. And this is what this is being promoted with for sale. But you put parking lots next to this with all the lights, 4 stories, 40 feet is allowed in Inlet Beach. Now, the planning department has given a 25-foot buffer between the residential, on the edge of the residential. Well, 25 feet is about 1 row of cars. And Inlet Beach is located with the lake behind it and the Gulf in front of it. Noise travels. 25 foot isn't anything. And those 4-story houses, they're going to look down at the parking lots. They're going to get all the noise from the parking lots. They're going to hear all the people from the parking lots. This isn't what they signed up for. None of the residents is. Now, the donut hole, they have other restaurants in South Walton. They knew how much parking they needed. The county knew how much parking they needed. The fact that they want to take over residential area and make parking lots, and they'll use the crossings ones for parking too. That isn't right. Let them put a parking garage on their commercial property. If you set a precedent to throw out our neighborhood plan and start letting the commercial go into our residents, that isn't right, that isn't fair. The whole community voted that this is the way we wanted our community to grow. You're going to really open it up because also the people who own the crossings own other commercial property, and that can be extended into our residential areas also. The residents feel they've spoken to the county on this, and I can't believe I'm coming home. I'm coming here to plead this. My house is right below here, and right here I own this property too. Now I can hear the music from 30 Avenue every Thursday night. That's how much the sound travels. And I just don't think all the residential property needs to be under the threat of being devalued by the commercial just growing into the residential areas. If you remember, the Dollar General was turned down on a commercial piece just because of the trucks and stuff going through the residential area. But this is going to set a precedent to throw out our neighborhood plan completely. And like I said, we feel we've all voted once already. The whole community has gotten together and said we only want commercial along the highway. And we shouldn't have to keep coming back just for the greed of the commercial people to keep growing. And Inlet Beach does not want to be a dumping ground for the 38 commercial needs. So I thank you for your time. I've sat in your chairs.
Okay,
So
thank you.
Can we ask her a question?
Sure.
Just a couple. On your map right here, where exactly
Okay,
is
the
that
little,
on this map?
see the little red right here, the little red square?
Spot?
Yeah, that is where the two proposals are located on. It's zoned townhomes, which is residential, because when we did the neighborhood plan, the apartments were there. They're still there. They are run down. They're still there. But that's the property we're talking about.
So,
The big white piece right
Yeah.
next to it, that's the 5 acres that my clients own.
Okay.
so where's
So
your
on
client's
here-
property from that map?
This is the property right here,
Okay.
and this is the property my clients own. Then this is the property where the $850,000 homes are going. This is my property here, and this is my property here.
And all that's land use is residential based on the Inlet Beach
Neighborhood plan.
neighborhood plan.
As you can see, commercial is only on the highway.
Okay.
And that's how everybody's been living their lives in Inlet Beach and building their homes and hoping the value of it. And my clients who own that, they inherited it from the World War II veteran fathers who originally, that's how some of the families got their property. And this is their family's legacy to pass on and that family to make some money. And now this blows it out of the water. Who wants to have 32 homes next to a parking lot that's open from 6 in the morning till 10 at night
Okay.
with traffic and doors
Thank you very
standing?
much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rick Jaffe? Did I say that right?
Yes, close enough. It's Rich Jaffe. I'm here as the Vice President of the Historic Inlet Beach Neighborhood Association. And quite frankly, I have to echo some of the things you just heard. The reality of this is your job's already been done. This can't happen. It cannot legally happen. We have a comprehensive plan that was passed in 1999. We are currently in the process of trying to amend that plan. And in case you don't know, that's a huge job. We have to come before the Board of County Commissioners with the amendments we would like to see. We have to get their approval. It has to go to Tallahassee and get state approval, and then it has to come back and be revised and back and forth. It's a process to amend our comprehensive plan, or any comprehensive plan, quite frankly, that could take a year, 2 years, and it needs approval from state. To simply have a developer come in here and say, we want to amend the comprehensive plan, listen, we're not even necessarily against what they want to do, but you can't do it. In addition, what you just heard is absolutely correct, that the comprehensive plan from 1999 sets out very specific distances and areas along 98 on both sides as the neighborhood commercial zone. We're fine with it. Stay there. But you can't simply say we want to encroach into the residential area and build something different. And oh, by the way, Planning Commission folks, we'd like you to change the comprehensive plan. You can't do that. It's not legal. It just, I mean, it's out of your purview. As a board, We've discussed this, and again, we agree absolutely about setting precedent where developers can simply come in and say, oh, we'd like to do this, and all of a sudden change what's been on the books for a long damn time, and take away people's rights to their properties, and the plan that we've all agreed to, we've worked under since 1999. I appreciate your time, I appreciate you listening, and I hope that you hear us, because it's not that we're against this project necessarily, we're against the concept of the project. For anyone to think you can just arbitrarily come in and as a matter of business change something that those of us who own those properties and have owned those properties for decades worked on, agreed to, and now live by. You can't just walk in and go, hey, we want to make some more money and change it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Sir.
Have y'all had discussions with the developer?
Not a word. First I heard of it was when it got posted in the Defuniak papers, and word started spreading. We saw the signs, as the lady before me just said. You know, most people are not particularly aware of what goes on in neighborhoods as far as development goes, that sort of thing. The signs are there, sure enough. Advertising is meeting, and quite frankly, I think if it weren't for the fact that at least a few of us showed up to raise the flag of impropriety here, maybe it might have gotten done. And you know as well as I do that when things get built after the fact, right or not, they're already built.
Okay, did you have something?
No. I was going to ask Mark about what he's saying as far as.
Well, you're the planning commission. You don't make changes. You make recommendations to the
Right.
Board of County Commissioners. And yes, you can make a recommendation or not make a recommendation that a particular land use change occur even in a neighborhood plan. That's correct.
But you can't just change it.
No, sir. We go to the Board of County Commissioners. Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Would you like to reply?
Is that the last one?
Hmm?
Is that the last speaker?
Yeah, does anybody else want to speak? That's the last one that signed up. Okay, yeah.
Robert Carroll, again for the record. It is a comp plan change, and you can make that change. There is a procedure for it, but it can be done. All of 30 Avenue, that went through the same exact process as this did, and they made the change for what it is today. So that it did go before you, the planning board approved it, and it did move forward. Just a couple of things is that we're not trying to ruin the neighborhood. I grew up in Inlet Beach for a few years, so I appreciate Inlet Beach. But there is already commercial traffic that's in that area. If you'll notice the green, right here, that's all Donut Hole. This right here is Inlet Beach Water System. And then you've also got the entrance, another neighborhood entrance to 30 Avenue. So we were trying to, again, not to dive too deep into that neighborhood. I was trying to just talk about this one, but the next one, the Donut Hole parking lot, currently it has two very dilapidated rundown buildings and parking that's on the very property line. That edge, that will all be removed. A vegetative buffer would go up. We're actually going to retreat from the neighborhood to create more buffering that's not there now. This would have bufferings on the sides. I think
What type of lighting will you have in those parking lots?
it's very minimal. Your lighting standards, we can't bleed out into the neighborhood anyway. We have a photometric plan that we would turn in with that. We have not met with the neighbors because this is the text amendment. This is to move forward. If this got approved during the development order stage, because it is infill, we're required to hold a community meeting. So we would be inviting the public, the community, to get their input on what those buildings look like. But the parking is an overflow for the Donut Hole, which during busy times, they're parking all up and down the street. So this would alleviate that traffic and get them off the roadway. I've got a layout for the parking lot if you're interested in seeing what that looks like. But currently, where those other buildings are.
Ain't that sort of like closing the barn door after the horse got out, as far as having a community meeting after once this.
We can't proceed with the development until we have a community meeting, and any project has to come before you.
But I mean,
you could deny any
to
project.
Talk to them informally. I mean,
we did the notices, and we did the.
We've got some requirements for this step.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
I understand.
If we need to take a step back and meet with them to go over this, that's your decision to be made.
Well, wait a minute. I think what he's asking is, If we take the action that you're suggesting we should take tonight, will you then have a responsibility to go and meet with the public afterwards to get their public comment?
For a development order submittal in infill, you have to hold a community meeting.
So
Yes, sir.
We both understand that that's going to happen.
Yes, sir.
All right. So it doesn't merit us tonight telling you to go back and meet with them prior to having this decision made tonight, correct?
Sure.
All right. So I think that clarifies for me where we are.
But as you'll see, this is all concrete now for this, which we would remove all that, pull all this back and create a buffer there, which does not exist now. So,
And you could get input from them about the buffers and everything as to
sure.
what was acceptable to the neighbors.
Yes, sir. As you can see, donut holes here, Inlet Beach Water's here, so there's lots of commercial traffic that's occurring there. We're not getting anything further in the neighborhood than what's currently there with the donut hole. You see where that line is. These are old government lots, and the lines are drawn in the sand, and it was on 98. But 98 runs this way, and the lots run this way, so it had triangles that stops. That's why the depth is different on either side of the roadway.
So the point that you're making is the commercial traffic that would exit into this parcel is no greater than the public traffic that would enter into the donut hole, which is the main purveyor of traffic right now.
The traffic's there now. We're not expanding donut holes, so they're already there. The cars are already parking there, and they're up and down the road. This would get them off the road into a safe parking lot.
But that parking lot is closer to the neighborhood than they currently are.
Yes, sir. Yes. Currently, there's townhomes.
I think that's the rub, is you're moving that closer to where people live, and anytime you have a parking lot, it does create more noise. But
well, the parking lot that was built and designed for the restaurant itself would not large enough based on the amount of customers you have. So now what I want to do is move to the other side and create a new parking lot to handle the overflow of customers. Well, I've been down in the beach a lot, and I see the cars on the side of the road like you described. But you know, to me, it seemed like the developer should have anticipated that they need more parking and maybe bought more land or built the donut hole at a different location and gave them park.
I wasn't involved in that project, so I don't have any input how many cars were there, what they designed it for. But I know that there is a parking issue there, and this would resolve that parking problem.
Well, I think the point he's trying to make, and I think it's a good one, is that we're potentially taking care of one problem, but creating another one for the people that live there. And I think that's the rub, and I think that's what I'm hearing from the public who are sitting out in the audience tonight. And without trying to put too fine a point on it, what he's saying is that Donut Hole should have taken care of this problem before it impinged on the rights of the neighbors who live next door. And I understand where they're coming from.
Sure.
I do. And frankly, I sympathize with them. Now, whether or not they have a legal right to stop that is not within our purview at this point. Sure. What I will say is that I certainly do understand why they are concerned and why they're here to express their frustrations. And I also think that the gentleman at the end here is exactly correct, that this probably should have been thought about before, and the gun's not pointed at you on
No, sir.
you
No,
on
sir.
here. That's not a query as to what you did. But I certainly do understand the rub. I understand why they're frustrated and angry. And I especially take into account the idea that the gentleman in the back of the green shirt said, hey, look, we all got together and pushed this through, and we decided what we wanted when everybody was involved. And I understand why they think that's a little unfair now to come back and change that. And I think you understand that as a reasonable person as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And I think part of the problem, and part of the problem that they have is we can make a recommendation to approve this, and it doesn't give you the right to build anything, but it gives you the right to go down that road to build something.
That is correct.
And once you start down that road, sometimes that road is wide open and is not.
Everything has to come back.
I understand the
Sure.
process, and I understand you're not required to meet with the public or with the neighborhood prior to this step. I think in a lot of cases it's better to do that, even though you don't have to, just to kind of get their input and see if there's a way to resolve a problem before it happens.
Yes.
That was what I was getting to.
Yeah, and I see what they're saying, and I see their fear, because once the door's open, the door's hard to close, and this is that first step. And I think my opinion is maybe better to just wait and go talk to them and try to come up with a way to please everybody before you come asking for that first step to be taken. That's just my opinion.
And the point that the neighbor or the adjacent property, we have to look at their property rights, and if they have the ability under the current land use to build these homes that are worth several $100,000, And us approving even opening the door, as the chairman said, to go down this road, makes it harder for them to make their money, basically, and to use their property to its fullest use. That's a problem, and I sympathize with those individuals who could lose several $100,000.
I think the flip side of it is, if you don't do nothing, you got people parking in the neighborhood, and that's not good either.
Right.
That's a problem.
I think there's got to be a way to resolve it.
They're very run down as well. I don't know if you've seen those buildings. They're pretty scary.
Yeah.
So
I understand. But you got to, I mean,
this would be cleaner than what's there now.
I completely understand. I don't disagree with that at all, okay?
Yes.
But what I'm saying is, I think that perhaps in this instance, it may be, I think that the fear that they have, like I said, is once that door's open, it's hard to close it. And they have no assurance of what may or may not be agreed to at the next step. You know, you could have a meeting at the next step and say, well, we ain't doing nothing you want. We're going forward. And you come back in here and who knows who's sitting up here at that time, and it get approved and their voice has been lost. And I sympathize with that.
Sure.
But that's my opinion. But all we are is a recommendation, so.
Yeah, I think this thing should be taken before the Inlet Beach Board first, before it comes here.
But it's on our agenda, and we have to make a decision one way or the other tonight as far as a recommendation to the BCC. So, commissioners?
We got a question for Mr. Parker.
Okay.
Thank you, by the way.
We could recommend that we, if they want to, that we continue it to the next meeting,
could.
allow them to have time to meet, couldn't we?
Could do that.
One other opportunity available, both to this board and to the BCC, would be to condition the approval of the land use subject to a developer agreement that would limit what they could develop on that within the allowable uses. We've done that on a couple of other small-scale amendments where there was great fear that the land use category itself, once changed, might allow something greater than what the applicant was actually proposing to construct. And this might be a circumstance where you could sort of ratchet down what the allowable uses would be and tie it to that land use category.
We could. I prefer to have them sit down and try to work it out.
Yeah, because if they don't work it out, then the landowner's stuck with something that's got a limited use on it.
Question. I heard several people describe this today, a neighborhood plan, a comprehensive plan, and they described these areas that got colored out of residential, commercial, etc. But is this what the county accepted when they proposed this comprehensive plan? Is this what the county stands behind?
They went through the process and amended the comprehensive plan similar to what this applicant is doing. They have to go through the same process. Now, when the Inlet Beach Neighborhood Plan was originally developed, there was a much more detailed process for developing a neighborhood plan. That process got moved to the Land Development Code. The Inlet Beach folks were invited to move their plan from the comprehensive plan to the Land Development Code, and that language is still in the Land Development Code and is available, but it's optional. They chose to leave it where it is. And because it is where it is, it's not an amendment to the Land Development Code and not subject to that procedure in Chapter 2 that relates to neighborhood plans. It's a large-scale amendment that's governed by those regulations in Florida statutes that relate to amending comprehensive plans. It happens to be a neighborhood plan, but it's also a component of the Walton County Comprehensive Plan that was approved by the Board of County Commissioners, and the process for amending the Inlet Beach Plan is the same for any other large-scale amendment.
Okay.
But it can be amended. It is very legal to amend it, subject to following the right process. Reasons for amendment are typically changing conditions, changing economic conditions. The economic conditions in 1996 might not be the same ones in 2007 or 17. Lost 10 years there.
I don't disagree that it may be needed. I just think that because of this situation, the process could be, although it's not required, could be done differently.
Well,
just
and
to
as-
help smooth that transition.
As Mr. Carroll did say, because it is in neighborhood infill
Right.
on the future land use map, they are required to do a neighborhood meeting before they can actually apply for a development
I
order.
understand that, but that's, like I said, that's a step down the road, and sometimes that step down the road gets you a little bit farther than it might show.
When Donut Hub applied for a change, do they have to get a variance change too, to put that restaurant there? Or, and if not, when they built that restaurant, how do y'all determine, because I'm not real familiar with that, how do y'all determine how many parking spots they needed? Tables?
Based on the gross,
Footage of the-
we have a table, and it's based on the gross square footage for a restaurant. It's one space per 150 square feet of heated and cooled area. I think the Donut Hole did take advantage of a 20% discount in the parking rate that was available to them based on their circumstance and the requirement to put at least half of the pre-credit parking behind the building, which is an incentive to put the cars off of 98 and behind the buildings to improve the visual characteristics.
They maximize the parking lot based on the square footage of their restaurant.
They probably did.
Okay.
And it's been much more successful than they expected it would be, and or maybe just as successful as they
I'll
expected.
tell you what, if they didn't
it to be.
expect it to be successful, they should have drove just down the road and looked at the other one.
Well, that's what, exactly, because the one down in Santa Rosa and also in Destin just is busy.
Oh, yeah, you can't get in there.
You can't get out.
And that's part of the problem we have down there is poor planning.
A victim of their success.
Right. Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
We make a motion that we continue this to next month to give the developer a chance to meet with those two community groups and see if they can come to some sort of agreement.
Well, would you amend the motion to give them more than a month? Because getting everybody together might be a long, long shot.
Yeah, I'll do that.
To go to when?
To
How long?
the June meeting.
Well, let's see, how long do they think they need? I mean, if they get together next week, they could have it done in a month, so depends on what they think. I wouldn't want to push it off another 60,
Well, I hear
another
what you're
30
saying.
days unless you
I hear
have
what
to.
you're saying.
I'd say give them a month, and if they're not ready, we can continue.
Yeah, we can always
Then we'll
continue
deal,
again.
we'll deal with it next month, but at least give him a chance to talk to these two.
Yeah, give them the
individuals.
motivation to get it done.
And, all right.
Is the motion good? I'll
Do
second.
you understand the motion, Karen? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now, that was just on item number
2.
2. We still have 3 to go.
We still have item number
Which
3.
is, we just had the discussion on.
And we just talked about item number 3 also, but we need to formally act on item number 3. This again is large-scale text amendment submitted by McNeil Carroll Engineering, requesting to amend the comprehensive plan, Inlet Beach traditional neighborhood plan, land use map designation from residential to neighborhood commercial, along with the various text sections of the Inlet Beach neighborhood plan. And again, this would be subject to a development order to amend the Donut Hole development order to add this parcel in for additional parking.
We just had all the discussion on both of these.
Yep.
Does anybody feel the need to go over it again? 'Cause if you want to, we will.
I'm good.
Okay, okay. Commissioners?
I recommend we do the same thing. Continue it to the May meeting.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We just knocked 5 minutes off our meeting. This is, we need to swear everybody in, Mark.
Yes, sir. Anybody who anticipates speaking before the board or testifying on the next items, would you please stand and raise your right hand so I can swear you in? Anyone anticipates speaking to the board in the next few minutes? Hour.
4, 5, and 6 are continued, right?
All
Yeah,
right.
we'll go to 7.
Do each of you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give before this board will be the truth? I do. Thank you. Commissioners, anyone had any ex parte contacts about any item on the quasi judicial docket? No. Everybody is saying no. Each member is saying no. Mr. Carpenter.
All we have left is 7 and 9?
7 and 9.
Okay.
And number 7, Stonegate subdivision, request to recommend approval by final order. This 69-unit, single-family subdivision was reviewed by Tim Brown. I'll let him further introduce the project.
Yes, thank you. Just as some background, they got a land use change from CR 2 to 1 to low density residential back in August of 2015. So they're coming in with a proposal of 3.52 units per acre. 4 is allowed. This is on the west side of West Hewitt, north of Walmart. They have a proportionate fair share contribution of $118,280. There's some other conditions in terms of wetland permits and other state permits. Other than that, staff finds that it's in compliance with the comprehensive plan and the land development code. And I'll entertain any questions the board may have.
Commissioners have any questions for staff? Not yet.
Thank you.
Mr. Eubanks.
They're having their meeting.
Good evening, Commissioners. Jamie Eubanks with Jenkins Engineering. I have been sworn in. Tim detailed.
Matt, did we ask him to?
He just went out.
He did?
Already out.
Okay.
Yeah, he did.
Tim obviously detailed some of the history of this. This was approved about a year and a half ago for after some debate and discussion, 4 units per acre, low density residential. The current developer is proposing 3.5 units, 3.52. I'll just walk you through just a few high points real quick, and then if you have any questions for me, feel free to ask. You'll notice, it may be hard to see in your packet, but we do provide there's an old timber stand that hasn't been cleared on this particular piece of property, about 70 feet along West Hewitt Road. Developer is actually going to maintain that stand of timber, provide a buffer for both himself and the neighborhood. On the north, west, and south, the other 3 sides of the property, it is surrounded by future land use conservation. So I don't anticipate any impacts from the development to any of the neighbor properties. You'll notice the large common areas. The developer does provide the 100-year storm attenuation. And in addition, the developer actually worked pretty closely with Mosquito Control District on this one. Mosquito Control District had 2 requests, both of which the developer agreed to. The first was to provide a bridge or a clear span across the ditch. So there is no volume lost in that ditch. It's not a culvert with a pipe or anything like that. It is a clear span across it. And they also requested a 50-foot easement along the center line of the ditch. That way, if the district wants to go in later, permanent for any improvements or repairs or anything of that nature, it's a little bit easier on their end. So I believe those are the high points. If you have any questions, I'm certainly open.
Commissioners?
Did you say a 50-foot easement from the center?
It's from the center line of the ditch, correct.
On both sides? So it's 100?
No.
There's 25 on each side.
Yeah.
Okay. I was fixing to say that's
50 total.
Good, okay.
And that's the area that moves right down the middle and to the right.
That's correct. The ditch itself, the actual wetlands portion of this site, is very minuscule. The ditch is less of a ditch and more of a trench, but that is correct.
Okay.
And that's within the natural 25-foot vegetated natural buffer.
Excuse me, would you explain the proposed setbacks for each of the lots?
Sure, they are the standard county setbacks, 7.5 side, 20 front, 15 rear.
All right, thank you.
So there's no variances.
No variance requested at all.
Wow.
Maybe that's why hopefully no one's here. Haven't got any calls on it. Asked Tim if staff had received anything.
Anybody else have any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We have nobody who signed up to speak. Is there anybody here who would like to speak on this item? Seeing none, we will close the public portion of the hearing. Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Motion to approve.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and we have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Jim.
And Commissioners, the last item that we need to hear tonight is the number 9 Aliqua Animal Refuge relocation, being reviewed by Bob Barante. I'll let Bob introduce the project.
Good evening. This is a major development order application submitted by Dewberry Preble Rish requesting approval to develop 106,211 square feet of animal refuge center. The project is on 81.97 plus or minus acres with a future land use residential and rural state. Residential and rural state, excuse me. As you see on your staff report, I recommended conditional approval because at the time that we had to load the staff report at the time, there was still one outstanding condition that the planning director, since we don't have a planning director, the county executive signed the waiver for grass parking is one of the conditions I met. So that has since changed. So I would like to make a recommendation that this be approved. Just let me do some little administrative things before I turn it over to the applicant. As you notice, attached to your report, there are numerous informational pages with the square footage and the use of each building. So if you had any question on each building, you could refer to that. So, and it would meet the comprehensive plan. So I would like to first ask you to enter this report into the record and then turn it over to the applicant.
Mr. Chair, I'd recommend accepting the report.
We'll accept it.
I'll turn it over to the applicant.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Cliff Nauer, Vice President at Dewberry Preble Rish. Proud to be here today to present to you the most awesome project you've ever approved, reviewed, or seen. And so tonight we're going to find out if any of you guys are against kittens, puppies, or ponies.
Oh, come on, man.
Can we just go
You
and
gotta put
recommend
the
approval now?
pressure on, don't you?
So I've got with me tonight Miss Lori Hood, who was the proprietor of Aliqual Animal Refuge. And so just a small short story. She pretty much started Aliqual Animal Refuge out of her house. It has grown and grown and grown. And her house now looks really small and the refuge is really, really big. And so she's been for years trying to develop a project to move the refuge to a new location that'd be better suited for it. A number of years ago, or several years ago, the late MC Davis donated a large portion of property to the refuge. And since that time, they've purchased some additional property in the front that ties into Highway 20. I think this back here was what was donated by Mr. Davis. Lori's worked tirelessly to assemble a team of experts, excluding me, architects that have donated their time, engineers and everybody else that's donated their time to try to make this happen for them. And so it's a very well thought out plan that a lot of people have put a lot of time into. I wanted to see if I could just to go through what all it is that we have planned with the facility, just to give you a brief description of what it is that we want to do, if that'd be okay, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so the property sits on, the developed portion of the property sits on somewhere around 30 acres. It's going to have a welcome center. When you come in, it'll be kind of like a show place. The welcome center will explain to people that are coming there for the first time where to go for whatever it is they're looking to do. It'll have some adoption offices, public restrooms, a gift shop, and some offices for finance and executive positions. There'll be a dog adoption building that will be in a home-like environment to keep people or to help people be able to have direct access to the dogs with large fenced-in yards where they'll be able to run and let visitors check them out for those who are looking for a new animal. There's going to be, and I'll try to point them out as I go. This is the adoption building. It's going to be a lot of kennels and so forth. The center will be a building. It's going to be a medical clinic off to the side. Miss Lori, if you would like her to talk, can talk to you for hours about what they plan to do with the medical clinic.
Yeah, we'd like for her to talk, but we don't want to be here for hours. Take the abbreviated version.
So there's going to be a refreshment trailer, which is going to be kind of like an old Airstream, like what you got in Seaside, for example, so that people that are out there with their families to look at dogs, cats, horses, or whatever it might be can get a drink while they're out there. There's also going to be a covered horse arena. It'll be a multi-purpose area in a secure location for interaction programs with the horses. The medical clinic is going to have surgery rooms, forensic lab, spaces for animal rehabilitation, and also office space for an animal investigator from the Walton County Sheriff's Department. It's designed for teaching so that interns from veterinary schools can work alongside other veterinarians to learn shelter medicine. The clinic will not be open to the public. It'll be a closed facility, mostly for training. There's also going to be a chapel that overlooks the existing pond back here. The chapel will be for, of course, people that have lost their animals, for example. It'll also be open for meetings and classes. It will not be open for public worship services, but the chapel will be there with about 100 seats. She's got a fantastic architect working on the design for the chapel. It's going to be a great looking building and a great addition to the project. And then the last part will be some cabins, which will be like Katrina cottages for housing for interns or other individuals that are visiting to learn more about what they do. There's a lot of experts in veterinarian medicine that plan to use these facilities, and there's a lot of training that goes along whenever you're trying to attract professionals of the level that she's really recruiting. He mentioned earlier about the parking spaces. We've got a total of 160 parking spaces. We've got 7 handicap spaces. Out of the 160 parking spaces, 144 of those are paved. There's only 16 of them that are grass spaces. And so, as you can see, we have lots and lots of room. We're not stacking and packing cars by any means. And so we feel like the 16 grass spaces that we're asking for are not really a big issue. And so that's kind of my quick summary. I don't know if, Ms. Lori, if you'd like to speak on it at all.
I can, sure. Hi, thank you for listening to our project today, and thank you for having me. Of course, I'm extremely excited about this project. It's been not only a dream of mine, but a dream of so many people that are our supporters and adopters and people that come out on a daily basis. I really feel like this project is going to be one of the first of its kind in the entire United States. We're hoping that it's going to be a model for future animal shelters and animal refuges all across the country. We already have people that come from all over as far as Canada and Australia and Europe just to learn what we do. And so our main focus on this property is not to just fill it up with more animals, because unfortunately there's no way we can take them all. We have over 100 surrender requests a day right now, and we can only take in about 100 a month. And so our goal is not to inundate our property with, so many animals that we can't care for them. It's to build education and try to keep animals in their home and bring public out to teach them methods to keep the animals there. So I really hope you'll consider approving our project. And does anybody have any questions? I'd love to answer some.
I've got one. How long do you expect before build out? I mean, I assume you're not planning on going and building everything all at once. Is it a phase type project?
It is. Thank you for asking that. This is the phase 1. Right now, currently, we have the funding to build the Welcome Center. The medical clinic that you see there is actually not new buildings. We built all of our buildings on our new property, on our old property, to be moved. So we have 14 buildings that are actually movable. So that large thing that looks like a huge medical clinic, he can point it out, is actually all of our smaller buildings that we have now that we're moving under one like what do you call it? Yeah, like a pole barn. So we're going to put them underneath, so the the employees can service them easier. So that's going to be our quarantine area. So actually, we're pretty much ready to go as far as the welcome center and the medical, and that'll get us functioning just so we'll be operational.
Do you have plans for the western portion of the property?
We're just going to clear more and have more pasture space. We're just going to have more animal space there.
Okay, just curious.
Mm-hmm.
How many horses and dogs and all of this hold?
It's going to hold about 100 dogs, about 100 cats, and probably 25 to 30 horses. And we have smaller animals like goats and sheep and a couple of cows. We bring a couple of everything in because when the school children come in, we educate them on each individual species.
Where are the horses and ponies going to go?
The pasture space around the front entrance, there's 1, 2, 3 pastures, and then there's additional pastures back behind the adoption buildings.
Okay, any stables or anything like that?
Actually, we didn't build stables. What we do is we keep them free range in the pastures, and we have individual little walk-ins to feed them, and so that way it's a lot less care for our staff, and the horses like being out better.
Where's the arena at?
This the whole thing right here?
The whole thing?
No, the arena down to the right.
Oh.
Right there. Up. Yeah. No, down. Arena. No, the building.
Right there where
Yeah.
it says horse.
So what the horse arena is, we have a program called Equine Interactions. What we do is, since we work so closely with the Sheriff's Department and we take in all the cruelty cases from them, we end up with horses with unknown backgrounds. And the majority of them are old or sick or on special needs, and they're really difficult to adopt out. So what we've done is we've created a program to try to give those animals not only a job because they're expensive to keep up, but to address some human needs as well. So it's called Equine Interactions, and we bring autistic and handicapped special needs children and adults in, and we have a program where they come and interact with the horses. And right now we do it on a small scale because some of the children require not to be in a public space. So this space is going to be multi-purpose. That's going to be the main purpose, so the children can come and be away from the public, and we can also do abused children when we move to that location. And then the second function of that is we're trying to have some all-inclusive things on the property for fundraising because it's really expensive for us to operate, so we think if we have clinics on the weekends, that's a space for that as well.
I don't have a question. I just want to tell you how much I applaud what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
How much of a buffer are you going to have around once you clear your land between the other adjoining land? Are you going to create a buffer?
We do have a buffer, yes.
How wide would that be?
Jack, do you know how long the buffer is?
It's either 15 or 20 feet. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a 20-foot buffer on the east side. But there's also a kind of an access road through there as well.
Also, there would be an 8-foot privacy fence along that particular area there to protect against
anything that we have very few neighbors there, but where there are neighbors, we're putting up the wood privacy fence to address those issues too.
Well, I'm just thinking about future development and land around it.
Gotcha.
You got 95 acres there? Did I read that right?
It's total 100. It's 85 on the top part and 15 on the bottom part by Highway 20.
Yeah, the 15 down here, I think, is what was purchased for access off of Highway 20. They initially had this whole piece up here that's off of J.W. Hollington Road.
Yeah.
I think that's what Mr. Davis donated.
So the primary access will be off of 20 then?
Highway 20.
Highway 20, correct.
That land right there would box out on the left with it not highlighted in. Is someone living there, or on my chart here we got it outlined?
Next.
Right in here, I get to the left of it.
It's vacant.
Yeah, that's
it's a
vacant.
vacant lot.
Oh, y'all, I know you said you're gonna do a buffer on the east side, right?
Yes,
Are you
sir.
gonna do one there next to their land also?
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
we'd be required to have a buffer if we ever did anything with it.
Same, what, 20 foot, 25
Yeah,
foot?
something like that.
It's to the left of the existing pond that's there. It's a huge wetland. It's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
huge.
There's no plans to do anything with this down here at all. That's an existing pond right there. This is all fully wooded all the way around.
Right, I'm talking about to the west of it, where the road comes into the side, according to this map here I'm looking at.
You mean J.W.
Yeah,
Hollington Road?
Another highway off in 20.
Yeah, Hollington.
Hollerton Road.
That's where they said they were gonna put their pasture.
Right, but I'm
have
asking
a
right
buffer.
there, there's an area there that's not highlighted in red that joined Hollerton Road there, and I just wondered if you were gonna put a buffer there, and y'all said you were. 'Cause earlier you said you're gonna do one buffer on the east side.
Oh, the whole perimeter.
The whole perimeter, you're gonna do a buffer in?
Yes, sir.
I just wanna get clarification.
There's a lot of wetlands in here as well that, you know, really won't be able to touch or do anything with. I mean, if there is some more pasture, you know, availability out here, there's really not a whole lot because, you know, by the time you add up the amount of wetlands that are here, there's nothing like what we're gonna be able to do with this.
That was the high dry side. Initially, when we were donated the 85 acres, we were coming in off J.W. Hollington, and we were going to have to cross that wetland creek with a pretty major bridge, and it just seemed too expensive, and so we started looking for a way to get to the property on Highway 20, and we lucked into the 15 acres.
Very good. Anybody else?
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Now, I don't believe we had anybody sign up to speak on this item. Is there anybody who would like to talk? Wow.
Nothing, Bill?
This is a fun project for planning. It's a good project for our community. It's one of those feel-good kind of things.
We'll go ahead and close the public portion real quick, and I'll just say that we don't get to look at a lot of projects like this where we want to spend time talking about it. Right. And I think that's cool, so what's your pleasure?
I make the motion we approve.
Oh, boy.
How about I second his motion and call it?
Any further discussion?
Karen, you have three choices. Just pick one. I'm just kidding.
George and John, that one.
You know, I want to thank you. This is. I said we don't get to look at these kind of things, and these things are, you know, it's neat to see. So.
Glad to see it happening.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, because I know no one's opposed. Thank you.
Motion adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
Cool. I cannot believe we got out here at this time. We'll be here forever. I can still make the baseball game, you know?
I thought we were going to be here like, to see.
Yeah. Not me, brother.
Comes back up.
I want to get it on. We get it over.
Did Dale Anderson still work with y'all? He used to be on the same page. Didn't Dale Anderson used to work with y'all? Yeah, that's my cousin. Yeah, y'all do some really good things. Happy for you.
Congratulations on your vice chairmanship.
You know, called Pen Pastor.
Oh, no.